Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Designated Designer, a podcast about design where curiosity is the compass, creativity lights the way, and transformation is just part of the trip. I'm your host, Jennifer Stank, your brand spirit guide for this wild, wonderful ride where we navigate our creative existence in today's modern and conventional world. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Jesse Heebner, actually a recent client of mine that came to me for a brochure design. So not really the branding clients that I typically get, but it was really exciting to work with him on a brochure for something super fun and something that I had no knowledge about. Now I can tell everybody every kind of different style of door and specification. So without further ado, I am so excited to introduce you guys to Jesse Heebner. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and who you like to help?
Yeah, no problem. Hi, I'm Jesse. I work with a small business, a family-owned business out of Blandon, Pennsylvania. So, short version, we're Heeby Surplus, and then I operate a sub-company of that group, which is American Door Products. My parents started Heeby Surplus in '89 as just kind of a way to help out down on their luck contractors kind of thing. You know, anyone that needs a deal, anyone that's trying to get not screwed over by your big box stores, Heeby's was the place to go. And it started out as true surplus where, we're buying excess stock, overflow product of your windows, doors, flooring, anything of that sort. Pretty much anything that's on the inside of a house, I always say is what we sell, minus appliances. And then many years later, about 30 years into it, we ended up becoming so big that we bought the door manufacturer that we use. So ready to install exterior doors, we need someone to run it. I was graduating college at the time. I joined along, and now I've been doing that for 6 years. So the project I hired you for was building out the brochure for our marketing, so we can start trying to get a little more outreach, develop more and more, and just kind of grow my side of the company.
I really actually didn't have too much of an overview as to like how Heeby started and then how that kind of turned into American Door. So that's really interesting for me to hear as well, a little bit of the history overall.
That's an entire other podcast at some point.
That's awesome. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that brochure. So when Jesse came to me, we actually got connected through one of the connections I knew from college, working with Jay Winkleman, amazing dude. And he had suggested reaching out to me for brochure help because Jay's kind of helping on the website of things, but when it comes to print collateral, sometimes they need a little bit of help in that department. So I was really excited when you reached out and asked about the brochure. Initially, when Jesse came to me, what you guys were rocking for your product catalog was actually an 8.5 by 11. It was a couple pages long. And, it had all of your stuff in there and it was pretty solid and cohesive. But when we had our initial consult call, I recommended that maybe we go in a direction of a trifold brochure. And the reason that I suggested this was because thinking about, passing these out if you're at trade shows and things like that, and you have this 8.5 by 11, people tend not to really like to carry that kind of stuff around. So this was a perfect opportunity for us to talk about this. And I suggested maybe a trifold would be a good way to go. You can open it up, you can still see all of the products. People could put it in their back pocket. And I remember you being really interested in that mentality of it. So do you want to talk a little bit about the brochure overall and some of the unexpected design strategy decisions that you weren't really anticipating? Because I remember you said you were surprised about how much strategy was just in a trifold, because this was not a branding project. This was just a product catalog for your company, and you already are rocking a pretty awesome logo. I love the way that it's designed, and I love that the American flag is like a door. But you mentioned that the strategy was a little bit unexpected in the trifold. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Also, thank you for shouting out the logo. Probably my proudest achievement of this entire company. I'm so happy with how that turned out.
It's nice.
But yeah. So pretty much when I came to you, all we had was a really basic brochure, something that more or less I inherited and just kind of modified to slightly modernize it from the previous owners, who kind of just had a very dated 90s style, like, hey, here's the styles, here's what we have, here's what we offer. Half of it was wrong, most of it was discontinued. So we just kind of tweaked it, to just actually show the current product line, and it really wasn't deeper than that. When it came to you, it was nice because we started having a discussion about the actual, like, hey, when someone looks at it, what's the first thing they see? When they open it, what's the first thing that they... I also have it in front of me, so I'm just using it as an actual prop, which is nice. So it's nice because I really never thought about, like, oh, when you open it up, it's a trifold, so there is an additional opening internally. And I never really thought, like, oh, what needs to go on front section, and then you open it up, and there's an expansion, and what actually is beneficial to have internally, what's beneficial to have on that first opening page. And it's just kind of like there's a process to opening a brochure and how you read it. And it's something that we've all done. We've all opened a trifold brochure and like worked through it methodically. But I've never put any thought into how that process is done. I just really never did. Don't do a lot of marketing. And it was just very interesting because I was like, oh, you're really breaking down what that... It made me realize things matter. Like, placement of things in this brochure matter in a sense of there has to be a, like, process of reading, and someone's going to go through it in a very specific way, whether they realize they're doing it or not. And, you know, it's just like locations of content matters, what's on the back actually matters, and how we phrase it, and how... You know, is it too wordy? Are the pictures actually available? Are they accurate? And it's been also just a wonderful process of like bouncing back and forth where I'm like, oh, there's strategy and there's a game plan, and like I understand market strategy. I get the concept, but I've just never really done it myself and really discussed it. So it was very interesting. And honestly, like half the reason I even came on the podcast was I was just like, no, the conversations I had describing this brochure were so intriguing that I was just like, I want to talk more about this because I was shocked at how much thought went into essentially a piece of paper.
That is honestly one of the nicest compliments I've ever received, but it was truly so fun. And I think you did a really good job of capturing that in what you just said, because it felt like a team project, but a good one. A group project where it's not like you have to do the whole project and your group member is slacking off. It was so fun to get on every call with you, to talk through everything, to open up the brochure. I remember very early on, I was like, print it out, fold it up. It's so important for you to understand how that feels in your hands and how that would feel in your customers' hands eventually. So that whole process was just super fun to kind of work through and educate you, as we go along, because I think a lot of designers sometimes tend to fall short in thinking that their clients don't know anything, or that their clients are stupid, or that clients don't know design. And I've heard this so often thrown around in the design industry, but for me, I never felt that way. And it was really weird because all these other like really popular designers online are like, clients are stupid and we're gonna just design it our way because clients don't know anything when it comes to design. But it's like, hey, not for nothing, they're business owners. And I don't know if you lost sight of what it takes to be a business owner, but an idiot is not capable of running a successful business. So for me, when I started my business, I was really like, I want to talk to these people. I want to pick their brain. I want to know what goes on in their own brain and how they run their business and the decisions that they make and why they make them, because that's going to directly influence the way that I design and the strategy that we use. And to kind of give that floor to you and be like, okay, so what are your thoughts? What are your ideas? What do you want to see this brochure do? And I think that was really cool on our initial consult is I educated you on every piece of material has to have a purpose. When they get this brochure, do you want to drive them to your website? Do you want to drive them to direct mail? Do you want them to sign up to a newsletter? Like, there's always a purpose that every piece of collateral serves. Typically, when it comes to a vehicle wrap, you're trying to either drive them to the website or have them call your phone. And when it comes to a brochure, trying to entice them to purchase a product and then go to the website. Like, there's always some kind of purpose. And when you're understanding of that purpose straight away, it makes the design successful no matter what. As long as you know what the mission is, sometimes designers just design things to look nice, and that can fall short really quickly when you don't have a clear mission, you don't have a clear goal. It's not going to serve any type of purpose. It's just going to look pretty. And that's really where I started to pivot my entire philosophy. I always started to say design is supposed to be directional, it's not decorative. So that's really where it was just fun to get to talk to you about all that kind of stuff and see, you know, where are we driving people? How do we want them to work through the brochure? And you had such great ideas. Like, we talked about what you wanted people to see at every touch point when they're opening the brochure and why, you know, hiding some of the more common styles on the inside so that it entices them to open the brochure all the way. And a lot of people don't really think about that. I thought it was so cool when you were just like so into it about like, oh my gosh, this strategy is so cool. I want to learn more about it. So I was super stoked to be able to have you on the show and kind of talk more about that whole process.
Well, there's just nothing I love more than like learning the meticulous strategies that get involved in kind of anything. When it's like you're playing a game or like a board game, and suddenly you're in there like, oh, there's an entire side game that's going on within like the trading system, and you're like, oh, this is so fun. Like there's a whole way to game the system while playing a game, and that just
Yes.
makes me so happy.
I
And when
love
we were
that so
going
much.
through, yeah, when we were going through like the concepts of just like brochures and marketing, I was like, oh, there's a whole analytical game to this. Which, of course, you know, it's marketing is an entire field, but for someone like me who has just simply never taken the time to do it, it was very, very interesting to kind of learn more about. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was just I was enjoying it a lot.
That's awesome. And has it changed your perspective on design as a whole? Like, going a little bit bigger than just like a brochure, just a piece of paper, branding, marketing strategy, website design, vehicle wraps, like all of the stuff that kind of involves a cohesive like brand identity. Has it changed your perspective on that at all?
Yes and no. It's changed my perspective, and like I said, I've always had a respect for it. So I mean, it's not like I'm suddenly realizing it's important, but it's more I realize there's things I can utilize. So just for some more context, my side of the business, so Heeby Surplus, who I technically work for, is a retail store. That's my family-owned home center where you can buy, my product doors, but also windows, tile, kitchen cabinets, vanities, yada, yada, yada. I sell doors, pre-hung doors exclusively. And the thing is, I don't sell them to the public. So I sell them to home centers. My biggest customer is myself in the sense of I sell an order to Heeby's every week. We stock their floor, we do their special orders, we maintain their customers' happiness as a priority. So whenever I think of marketing, I always think of it like I'm not necessarily trying to get new individual customers, I need to get new stores. So I've never really worried about the car wrap or the billboard side of things because at the end of the day, if you found me already, we've probably had some form of an interaction or rapport, or you got a referral to me because you're not just going to walk into my store. In some way, shape, or form, we have to find each other kind of methodically because I have to go to a trade show, I have to have a nice interaction with you. I got dinner with a guy who happens to know your store, just got a price increase from your door supplier, and maybe you have an interest in me. So there's and that's where I've always kind of been hesitant with marketing because I'm like, a lot of the marketing is just me. It's me getting out there, my personality, me talking to people, and just, trying to get people to buy into me because I run this door shop. We're a small company. We do decent. We sell the entire Northeast, but at the end of the day, we have 35 customers, all family-owned home centers. And I have 9 employees. Like, it's not a gigantic corporation. So my other thought was we don't have the money for a full-blown marketing department, nor a full-blown marketing campaign. So it's always been, what's the small little stuff you can do that's effective? And to me, that's high-quality literature, because that makes sense. I can hand it out. And then having a nice up-to-date website, which is how we even met, because Jay was doing my website. So it was things like that that are little, but I can point someone upon an interaction where I'm like, hey, go to my website, check out these things. I have these, we're revamping the FAQs and the customer sign-up section. I can now hand out these brochures to my customers where it helps not only them and their customers get an idea of what they can order through us and kind of get the name out there in a way that isn't overstepping our own customers, because that's the other thing too. I don't want people buying individually from me. I want them going to our customers to buy my product from them. So it's always just kind of, I've had a weird relationship with marketing, because how much can I do and really get the benefit of it? Because at the end of the day, if I reach 1,000 people, I need 1,000 people that own a home center, because I'm selling 240 doors at a shot. So it's kind of this weird, I need to find the right people and I need the right marketing tools for that. And I've always struggled with, I don't really know what those tools are. But this entire interaction and our meeting has really helped be like, all right, there are tools available to me. I'm overthinking it, and I can just simply start with, hey, if I have good literature, I have a good website, I have the fundamentals and a foundation, and I can point people there, I can probably end up with some customer acquisition.
I think that is a really great point that you bring up, because not every business, like no two businesses are the same. And I think the coolest part about my job is getting to interact with all of these different business owners that have all of these different use cases, because where you might not necessarily benefit from like the brand and the vehicle wrap, you could highly benefit from that literature that you're talking about, brochures, business cards, flyers, perhaps like whatever it may be. You could benefit from that aspect of it versus like the vehicle wrap and the billboards and the big brand. And kind of getting to learn a little bit about each individual business is really fun for me, because sometimes I feel like I'm a doctor. Like, patients come to me, my clients come to me, and they're like, this is what I got. I have sneezes and a stuffy nose and a sore throat. What do you recommend? And that type of sickness needs a certain medication. And then I have somebody else coming in complaining of pain, and they need a different type of medication. And I really feel like design is kind of similar in that regard, because no two businesses are alike, no two business owners are alike, and everybody kind of has a different need, a different purpose, a different mission, talking to different people, and then being able to understand that and then distill it into a strategy that's going to be effective for that specific individual is like, that's my purpose in life, truly. It is.
Even like piggybacking on where you started with that, when you mentioned the car wrap, I think is just funny, and it's been in my mind since you mentioned it. But something that I think is interesting is, I also think for marketing wise, a lot of people sometimes get a little bit excited and forget what they're trying to sell. I mean, don't get me wrong, I did it a lot. I've been doing this 6 years, and early on when I had all these grand ideas and I mentioned them to my dad, and I'm like, yo, we could do this, 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 and he's like, Jess, you sell doors. And honestly, like, he's right. I sell doors. But where I'm kind of going with that is, I also got to think of kind of the perception of what's happening here. I sell a door. My entire business model is that I get a family-owned home center, a door that can beat Lowe's and Home Depot. So you can, I can sell you your 9-light unit. You now know what that is. I can sell you a 9-light door. Simple, very generic, standard. It sells at Lowe's and Home Depot for somewhere around like $250, $270. I think they actually just did a price increase, so go me. But, and I can get you that for a fractional cost. But where I'm kind of going with this is, if I show up to a customer and I'm like, hey, we're trying to get you a cheap, good deal product that's high quality, and I have a car wrap and a nice suit and all these expensive marketing campaign things, people tend to get the perception of like, oh, you're making a lot of money. And it's funny because, again, I'm dealing with, blue collar guys who own family owned home centers. So the second you kind of come in with this like slick salesman aesthetic, I know me personally, and I know from background of just knowing everyone in this industry for so long, they kind of get immediately on the defense where they're like, all right, what's the angle? What are you actually selling me? But I've learned, and honestly learned the hard way, where it's like, hey, if you just come in, you dress in what you usually dress, you drive a truck, and you walk in, you're like, hey, I got a good deal, it's a good product. Most of the time the guy drops his defenses and they're like, oh, you're actually trying to help me. And I'm not saying, like, at the end of the day, I am a salesman. I'm trying to make money. I'm trying to make a sale. But I do not want to screw over these family-owned home centers. And I gotta present that way. So I think there is kind of a benefit to, I save a lot of money because I don't have all this extra advertising, but I think it actually goes a long way where it's like, no, you're not, you're being real. And I think that realness and that authenticity goes a shockingly long way, especially in an industry like building supplies, which is, older generations are typically in it. I deal with no one that's my age. And you have to recognize, like, hey, these people are 50, 60 years old. They've been doing this for 40 years, and they have a very different mentality than you might have. So if I come out with, classic college educated, like, this is how we do it by the books, the guy who has legit been evading taxes for 40 years and doing it really, really well probably doesn't want to hear your slick salesman pitch. They want to hear what's going to make them money, which is, hey, I can beat the big box stores. I have this deal. Here's how I got the deal. Here's how I'm importing it. How's that work for you? Yeah, that works.
That's insane because honestly, that is my entire job as a brand strategist. What you just described, even though it's you going to places and presenting yourself in a certain way, that is exactly the same way I handle branding for my customers. Like when they have to walk up to their target audience, how do they want them to feel? And I just had a conversation with the dude that owns Roofing Army out in Michigan about this. Because initially when we were doing the brand for him, and he's working with the homeowners, so it's a very different market from what you said.
The second you make that jump, it's an entirely different world.
Totally different world. So he's working with the homeowners, and initially what he wanted to do was we were going to do this army guy, because it's Roofing Army. So we were going to do this army guy carrying like a ladder under his arm, running like towards you full sprint, like his one leg was picked up like he was in a running position. And he loved it. Like the owner just absolutely loved it. But then I always give 3 concepts when I'm doing branding. So I put together an army ant idea. And I think the last one, I forget what the last one is. It's always hard to come up with a third concept. It wasn't really a good one.
You always have 2 heaters and then it's like, let's get a third guy in there.
Yep. So the army ant was interesting because they were like dead set on this guy running at you. And then this army ant like came out of nowhere and he was so cute and so friendly, like had the little parachute, like he was dropping down, like we could manipulate the character. The way that he ended up being designed is he had a twig ladder tied together with grass on his back and it was all like twigs, and I put an army helmet on him and army boots, and he had work gloves, like regular work gloves. These are all symbols that this industry recognizes and feels comfortable with. Just like you're saying, not showing up in a suit, not having this slick salesman appearance. And we ended up going with this army ant character against the owner's like intuition, because he really wanted the dude running at you because that's his personality. But he was able to step back, understand who he's trying to talk to, and understand that the dude running at you was going to give the same effect as you dressing like a salesman, slick suit, nice vehicle. To the types of people you're talking to, these are homeowners. And usually when it comes to homeowners, the wife is the one making the decision. And they don't want this big gruff man like scarily running at them. So they went with this army ant character. And he was just super fun and playful. And he said, it's crazy because I drive the van around and I have like dads and moms like pointing at it and smiling. And, the kids are so excited to see the ant character because he's so cute. Like it's having that effect in his community that he wants, where it feels like you're showing up in your plain clothes and your pickup truck. And the way that you just described everything, it honestly amazes me how well you understand brand strategy without knowing that that's what it was called. Just being able to present yourself in that way and approach your ideal customers that way in a way where they could feel safe, where their defense isn't going up. Because if it was the wife having to make a decision and it's this really aggressive army guy running out of the van at her defense is going up. And these are things that I talk about with these customers and I talk about with my clients and kind of understand where you have to fit best in your market to be able to portray yourself that way. So honestly, I'm amazed that you have such a clear understanding of that. That's cool.
Well, a lot of that was just learned behavior as well, because luckily for me, it is this is my family's business. I've been working in it on and off the books since I was like 12. So, I mean, I've seen the whole thing. I have a good relationship with my dad. He's explained why he's very detailed oriented. I think similar to myself. So, I mean, everything is methodically done. Ironically, the one time I asked him, similar to what you were saying with the Army Man concept, the Heeby's is kept immaculately clean. Like, immaculately clean. Everything is constantly being cleaned. If something's on the ground, it gets picked up. It's something we, like, really repeat to our employees where it's like, hey, if you see trash, grab it. Just grab it. Just grab trash. Clean the shelves. Organize your things. Things need to be straight. And the one time I asked him, I was like, hey, why are we so meticulous about the cleanliness, the straightness of shelves? And he's like, well, one, I just like a clean store. I think it looks professional. But he goes, honestly, the wives want to shop here. He's like, I've been to home centers where they're gross. And I've walked in with your mom, and he's like, and she's like, yeah, no, let's just go somewhere else. Or like, she doesn't really want to look around. They're kind of half there. He's like, the second you keep the place clean, the wife's excited to come. They'll bring the kids. It's a whole thing. And he's like, and they'll end up making the decisions there. The decisions are easier to be made. And usually, she always wants the nicer thing anyway. So if he goes alone, they're going to end up getting the discounted, like, $9.99 faucet. But if she comes, they're getting a whole set. The nicer faucets. Because they want the nicer thing. Because she's right there. He can't argue her. He can't even say they didn't have it.
That's incredible. Honestly, I would love to meet your dad someday because he sounds like an incredible businessman. Talk to me a little bit more about the transition from, like, talk to me about growing up and, you know, being surrounded by business owners, being in the family business, and then the transition from Heeby's to eventually taking over American Door and carrying some of those, like, things that your dad kind of taught you along the way, because I'd just love to hear about that.
Yeah, no problem. So, I mean, like I said, I've been working at Heeby since I was 12. I would just sweep floors or I literally was sweeping floors and cleaning the trash around the property. I had a nice little golf cart. I would whip that around, take time, and I would just pick up trash. And that's what I did until I was like 16, and you could actually start working. And then I was just working in the front, and it would be, I would help load trucks. I would help people design their kitchens. And it was always funny because I'd been anytime my dad had to do anything around the house, I would do it with him. We were just always together. So, I mean, if he was replacing toilets, I was replacing toilets. We needed a new window, I was replacing windows with him. Oh, we need to retile this. The one time he donated a bunch of flooring for, like, the school snack shack. So he was like, hey, I donated flooring. We're going to install it this weekend. So me and him are clicking together, you know, back when they had the nice new snap together laminate. All in the shout out Wilson School District. If your mom ever volunteered at Bulldog Field, you are on a floor me and my dad installed.
That's so cool.
But yeah, I would just do everything with him. So one, it was awesome because I'm a very handy guy nowadays. But it also worked because when I did start working in the store, I knew how everything worked and I could actually help customers and I could kind of just flourish in that understanding. And I ask a lot of questions, probably too many. But I always just am intrigued in things, and I just like badgering people with, like, hey, why do we do it this way? Is there a thought process? Is this just how you operate? And really, when it kind of flourished is I played a lot of lacrosse in high school. I was always traveling in summers, and I was playing tournaments throughout the year, and my dad came to me with everything. So me and him would be in car rides once a week for 4 hours going anywhere up the coast to play lacrosse. And when we were up, you know, eventually just run out of things to talk about, we would just talk about business because that's what my dad knew. We had a family business since '89. He worked his butt off his entire life, having like 3 jobs at all times, supporting himself, getting through life. So he's a very interesting guy to talk to about that. And I know it's what he likes to talk to. So it's just where the conversations went. So I learned, his entire brain on just how it operates in terms of like, I do it this way. And like I said, my dad's very detail oriented. So I also figured out if Kev, say, for some reason always grabs this with his left hand, I know there's like 9 reasons why he does it that way. And I would just keep asking, being like, hey, like, why do you do this? Why do you do that? And eventually you just start to kind of piece together how he functions and how he does business. So, I kind of understood everything, worked at the store, got the internals of our retail store, and then I went off to college. Now, me and him have always discussed I always wanted to come back to the family business, but at the same time, I didn't just want to go to college, graduate college, come to work for Heeby's. Obviously, that's exactly what I did, so how did we get there? So I went to college for human resource management. I was really interested in the concepts of like training and onboarding and basically getting an employee, up to speed so that when they start, they know what they're doing. I just thought that was interesting. So I ended up, that was what I majored in, as well as supply chain management, because I was like, logistics are important, and that's going to help me here. Because I was helping with importing when I was there in my summer internships. I did one with my dad where I was just basically revamping his inventory system and how like things came in. So it was just interesting. And then really how I ended up here was I was originally going to go work in Philly for a little while, kind of spend time down there with my friends, and then just move home whenever I kind of felt like it and aim to transition into work. We really didn't get that deep into it. And then randomly, while I was on the job hunt my senior year of college, my dad called me and he's just like, hey, I have an opportunity to buy a door manufacturer. They're going to close. I'm going to buy all the equipment in the name. I need someone I can trust to run it. And I need to know within like 48 hours.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I'm sorry to do this to you, but like, it's a yes or no, and I need to know no because I need to figure out an alternative, like really quick. And I'm like, okay, give me a day, please. So I was actually driving home from an internship I was doing, and I got home and I remember I looked at my roommate and I'm like, dude, what do I do in this situation? He's like, you take the fucking job, dude. He's like, are you dumb?
We all need that roommate
Yeah,
in
and
our
I was just
life.
like, and I'm like, dude, I was like, it's a lot. I wasn't planning on this. He's like, yeah, you just got offered a company. He's like, take it, you idiot. And I'm like, oh, okay. And and it was just, we went kind of back and forth. I was like, all right, fine. So I called my dad the next day. I just like let it ride. And I was just like, hey, I'm in. He's like, all right, cool. I already bought everything. I figured you were. I'm like,
Your dad knows you. That's why.
yeah, sadly. Or
That
maybe.
is that is so incredible. Wow.
Yeah, and
That's an awesome story.
oh, it gets more intense. So then, I'm like, all right, I have about 2 months left my senior year. I kind of like cancel all the interviews and just start ghosting people who I was talking for jobs because I'm like, well, I know what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Here we go. Not much else. So I ride out senior year, graduate, and then as we're discussing like when we want to start, I'm like, hey, I was actually planning on taking like a month or two off when I graduated, just give me some time to like decompress and just hang out for a little while. And he's like, yeah, no problem. He's like, I can give you some time off. I'm like, cool. He's like, all right, after a week when you're home, you'll just start. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, you get a whole week. I'm like, all right, sounds good.
Yep.
And then so we started May 16th, what was that? 2019. June 4th, 2019, we bought a building to set up the factory in. Now, I am a human resource management major, supply chain management major. I've never exactly done factory layouts, so a little new concept for me. So naturally, the day we move into the building, my dad goes, all right, cool. You need to lay this out and figure it out. I'm like, yeah, no problem. He's like, and also me and your mom are going to Greece for 12 days.
Oh my God.
I'm like, got it. So I'm, went in, mapped out an entire factory. Luckily, there was 2 electricians who were helping me kind of, do the electric. So the one guy had set up a plastics plant, and he had weirdly just recently set up like different style door manufacturing plant. So not like pre-finished exterior, but similar concept. So he was just like, hey, I understand like the spacing issues you're gonna have. You should change this one thing. So I'm like, all right, it was the only time I called my dad when he was in Greece, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna redo what we talked about before you left. It's not gonna work. So the floor plan for like the actual manufacturing floor, like where the assembly lines are, is gonna be different. he's like, all right, cool. Like, I'm I'm seeing the most beautiful sights. Stop bothering me. And I'm like, yeah, I figured. Bye. And he's kidding, but he's not. So I was just like, all right, called him one time, figured it out, got it handled, and we've kept that floor plan for the past 6 years. So it's actually been shockingly optimized and maintained. We had to tweak a couple things just to fit honestly, new machinery, but it's operated. And now we're in the process we've outgrown this building. So this is probably the last year we'll be here. We're moving to near Heeby's where we're building a new facility, and that's a whole other thing. But
Wow.
yeah,
That
it's
is
nice.
so incredible. So a couple things.
Yeah, please.
The whole thing about you going to college for human resources and specifically onboarding employees and like systemizing certain things, that's my love language. I mean, oh my God. When I started my business, because I worked in industry, so I also graduated in 2019. That
Okay.
was the year I graduated. And then fresh out of college, I ended up at L&H Companies out in Reading. They do signage manufacturing.
Okay.
So I worked there for probably, I don't know, 6, 7, maybe 8 months. Most of my jobs that I held post college were not long because I knew like I wanted to be a business owner eventually. That was like my calling. I just had the itch and I didn't know it at the time, but it always drives you in the right direction. So I started at L&H Companies, and that was the signage manufacturing. So they had like offices where the engineers would actually engineer these signs because they're the size of a building.
Yeah.
And they had a design department. It would start in design. We would design the signs, and that's where I was. I was social media. They got me into a little bit of design towards the end of my time there because signage design is hard. Very hard. You're working with different types of material. Is it acrylic? Is it acrylic? Is it backlit? Is it channel lettering? Is it what kind of metal? Is it aluminum? Is it this, that, the other thing? What kind of wiring are we using? Like way more than what I was capable of knowing coming out of graphic design school. So I started there. And I used to just go out on the floor. And there was this old guy, and he was the channel letter guy. And very much like you just asked questions, my dad always answered my questions. I asked probably more questions than most kids will in their entire lifetime between the ages of like 5 and 15. Just all kinds of questions. And my dad always answered me. And I think that that's really great. Your dad did that for you too, because some parents don't. Some parents,
No.
it's like, shut up, leave me alone, I'm on a call, this, that, the other thing. But when you have a kid that's that curious, constantly asking those questions, they're destined for greatness. And the more you feed that fire, the more you feed that knowledge, the better you're setting them up for success, no matter if you're leaving them a trust or not. That knowledge, no one can ever take from them. So I'm amazed, and I'm very thankful that your dad was able to give that to you, because my dad definitely gave that to me.
He answered everything because I made the joke how he like if he did something with his left hand, but like you gotta understand, it's a bummer you've never met my dad for the context of this, just because it really is how he operates, where you could say like, hey, why'd you toss your pen there? And he's like, oh well, if the pen faces that direction, when I have to grab it in 20 minutes facing this way, it's easier. I'm like, oh, you have an entire game plan for the next 45 minutes based on where your stapler's located. Like, it was happening this morning. I get coffee with my dad every day. Monday through Friday, we're at the same coffee shop every day. And I look at him, and he's just, like, looking around, kind of like... And he's not really in the conversation I'm having with another guy, and I'm like, hey, what are you looking at? Like, what's distracting you? It's very clear you're trying to analyze something. And he just goes, oh, this coffee shop's about the same height as the foundation walls we just put in, but I think they're 2 inches taller. And I'm like, yeah, stop looking at that.
Wow, your dad sounds incredible.
And he's like, yeah, you see, he's like, if you go 3 foot off the frame, like, and the frame's 80 inches and it's about 36 up, you're saying it's this, and that. And he's like, yeah, he's like, you see it? I'm like, yeah, I see it, but it's just kind of one of those things. I'm like, I know you're overanalyzing something, so explain it, because now I'm curious.
That's honestly incredible. And my dad, very much the same thing. I would ask him stupid questions about, why do you do it this way? Why do you do it that way? And he always had an answer. There was always a reason that he was doing something. And I think because of having that upbringing is what drove me to eventually want to be a business owner. And when I was going through L&H Companies, I used to love to walk out on the floor, and there was this old guy that did the channel lettering, and I was like the only designer that cared. I went out on the floor and I learned they have a magnetic table with these little magnets that they'll stick up against the lettering. So when the flat face, like the flat face of the channel letter is laying down on this magnetic table, they have these like, it's like bendable plastic that wraps around the outside and it has to get glued to it. So he'll run the bead of glue along that edge and then put the magnets there to hold it until the glue sets. And then while the glue is setting, he's running the electric for the lighting. And I would just watch this happen. And every time I'd drive past a Weiss grocery store, I knew how the letters on the outside of the building were put together. And this perspective shift, changing my way of seeing things in life, just, I couldn't get enough. It was like a drug. Like, I could not get enough of a fix of that. I just wanted to learn so much more. And that was the first industry that kind of broke me of that. And then that translated into, I ended up working at a couple wrap shops after that, and then eventually found my way to Kick Charge Creative, which was like my dream job. My entire career since like 2019, my dream was to work at Kick Charge Creative. It was like the Disneyland of brand design and brand strategy. They're one of the biggest brand marketing agencies in the entire country. Like, Dan is known everywhere in every state. It's insane. So I was like, this is my dream job. This is my calling. I'm going to work for this company and I'm going to die there. Like, that was my thing. I was like, I'm going to work here forever. And I had this whole idea of the way that I thought that they were in my head. I thought that it was this amazing company and, you know, they're doing all of these amazing things and they're putting their heart and soul into stuff. But as I saw, it was a little bit more industrial than what I thought. I thought it was more home cooked meal type of branding, and it ended up being a little bit more like McDonald's type branding. Their entire thing is they want to turn it around as fast as they can because that's what makes the most money. I can't hate them for that. That's a smart business decision, but it wasn't fulfilling my need for whatever it was that I was looking for. So at that point it was awful. It was like that moment you went home to your roommate and you're like, what do I do? I felt so convicted because it was like, I have my dream job. This is everything I ever worked for. I finally made it. And I'm still not happy. Like, I'm not happy enough. Is there something wrong with me? Like, am I broken because I'm not satisfied at the job that I worked 6 years to get to? And it was such a mind trip. Like, I could not cope. I didn't know what to do. And then at that point, I had been working on my business since I graduated college. Like, I knew that was something I wanted to explore, whether it was going to succeed or not. I knew it was something I wanted to explore. And 2019, I worked L&H companies, my 9 to 5, and I was going right to Computer Wizards with Nate and Jay for 5 to 9. And I was helping them out with site stuff. I was helping with design and marketing and things like that. And that's where I got to know them. And I stayed with them since, you know, like not as frequent, but at that time they needed me pretty frequently and it worked great for me. That got my start. And then they start introducing me to other people. One client turned into 5, turned to 10, turned to 20. You know how it goes. And then by the time I was starting to feel all these feelings with Kick Charge, I was like, maybe it's time to go full time. So jump into my business. And I'm just thinking from a designer mindset at this point, because in industry, they don't teach you project management. They don't teach you onboarding. They don't teach you client portals. They don't teach you having to have people sign contracts and artwork approval forms and all that kind of good stuff. Nothing like that is taught in school or in the industry, because in the industry, I was just a designer. They had project managers to handle the project management side of things. They had an HR person. They had a legal team. They had all of this other stuff that I didn't have to focus on. So I get into running my business. And at first it was so overwhelming and it was a lot to learn. But then as I started to learn more about it, the systems and the processes just sucked me right in to the point where I was just obsessing over it in all of the best ways. Where I was starting to dwindle because I was facing creative burnout and, you know, trying to learn how to start this business. I feel like the systems and the processes saved me because I fell in love with it in ways that I didn't think was possible. And I started to systemize everything to the point where when somebody fills out a project request form, like you did for the brochure, it triggers a series of events to occur without me even having to touch my mouse. So project request form gets filled out. It creates a lead ticket in my project management software. When the lead ticket gets created, it triggers a response in my project management system to create a task. to respond to that inquiry, and it assigns it to myself, and it assigns the date for 1 day after the submission comes through, and it puts the amount of time it's going to take, and it generates everything that I need so that when I go to my computer that morning, my task is already created. And I have a project manager AI assistant that's just doing all this stuff in the background. And I got so hooked on it. And being able to onboard my clients. Like, I didn't even know the term onboarding before I started my business, and I start doing my own research, and I start looking into this stuff and asking the questions and trying to understand it, and being able to onboard a client and take them from being strangers to having a working relationship before you start the design phase. And that translates into, having employees, that whole onboarding process, being able to iron that out and smooth that out. I'm such a nerd for it. Don't get me started. I'll keep you here all day.
It is really interesting too, because like, from just the real world example, like, it always shocks me how much time's wasted from people needing to go get new things, which it sounds hilarious to say out loud, but the entire concept of like running assembly lines would be like, you essentially never want your like assemblers to leave their station. They shouldn't have to leave to go get things. So you basically just want to minimize distances traveled, minimize things they'd have to go to. A big thing for me was I always tried to minimize specialization of products. So like everything I buy is as universal as humanly possible to basically allow, hey, everything can be utilized. So we sell like one door that works with the maximum amount of glass options. And the entire thing is just basically, how can we optimize everything in terms of the big one's distance traveled, because you don't realize if they have to go get one thing, but they have to walk 50 feet to get it, and they have to walk to get that one thing 6 times a day. Okay, how long does it take to walk 50 feet? Does that guy happen to walk by the person he really likes to talk to in that 50-foot walk? Because, okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with chatting while you're on the work floor. But let's be real. It's going to end up eating a lot of time. And if he's having a bad day and he needs to bullshit with someone, maybe he does that walk a little extra. And, there's kind of one of those things where you got to just be like, hey, to optimize work done and production, you really need to minimize, distances traveled, availability of their needs. So are the parts that they're going to need easily accessible? Are the components that they need to get occasionally and less frequently also easily accessible? So maybe that's something that's a universal thing. So every station of different, we have 3 assembly lines, 1 builds a specialty product, 2 build the basic products. So is it a component that all 3 of them need to use? Is it a component that 1 of them needs to use? Is it a component that 2 of them need to use? What's happening today? Where can we stage it? Are they doing the prep for this order today? So it is really, really fun in a way. It's also, I'm not going to lie, very, very stressful.
Yes.
But like, it's really just kind of trying to be ahead and, what are your orders we have today? What are we building today on each assembly line? So I know, like, this is being built here, this is being built here. I literally keep a little whiteboard that just explains everything and, like, what is actively in production. And then it's just kind of a timing game of, okay, if this is going to be in production and I'm planning on shipping it on Wednesday and it's going to be in production today, this customer likes this style of frame around the door. Do we have that prepped, or is that going to be a whole thing that he needs to go and get done? If he goes and gets it prepped, is that going to stop the guy who's prepping another person's order in the middle of their preparation? Is it simple that he can just sneak it in really quick? Should we have did it yesterday? And then it's just kind of remembering all of these mistakes and knowing in the future, like, no, that's a big time sink. Have him do that on Monday. Guys are working overtime on Wednesday, but the one assembly line isn't going to be running, so those 2 guys should probably be doing the prep for his order, and then they can, throw them here, throw them there, and just maintain production as quickly as humanly possible. And then you add, the human element of all of that, where it's, did someone call off today? Is someone having just a bad day? Is someone struggling with this and I don't know about it? Is someone unhappy with their job, or are they unhappy with their girlfriend? What is what's going on? And then it's, it's kind of like playing the human game, which is arguably more important, of just how do we keep everyone on pace? How do I maintain everyone? How do we get the maximum out of what we have?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting because when you're looking at it from that human perspective, you're actually leading a team of people. I can imagine that that's an entirely different ballgame. And honestly, I'm just starting on my journey of human behavior, studying human behavior and psychology. There's this one guy on YouTube. His name is Chase Hughes, and he was like a Navy SEAL for a period of time, and then he was like a behavioral analyst for like the government or something crazy. And now in his quote unquote like retirement, he is starting this NCI university where he's compiling all of his study and research. Actually, his whole mission started when he got rejected by a girl. He went out on a date and he asked this girl on a date and he got rejected. And I don't know why, but the dude just took this particular rejection really hard. And he talks about it in his book, which I purchased, where he talks about this rejection and it sent him on the spiral of trying to understand human behavior and being able to pick up on, body language cues and things like that, and just being able to understand who you're talking to. And it just sent him into this rabbit hole of like human behavior and trying to understand that kind of stuff. And he started NCI University, which is an online training program, which I actually got a scholarship to, which was so exciting. And I was able to start to kind of learn about some of this stuff. I didn't take any of the courses yet because I just got the scholarship like a week or two ago and life's been crazy, but I got his behavioral operations manual and I read the first little introduction part where he talks about like this rejection that he had and trying to understand human behavior, and some of the videos that he has on YouTube. I watched through his whole YouTube before I bought into the course, and it's just so fascinating to hear him kind of talk about human behavior and being able to kind of rise a team up where everybody's kind of on the same page. You're attending to each person's specific needs. And even though that can be a time suck, if you're able to approach it in a strategic manner, it can benefit you and the whole team. And his whole thing is we rise by lifting others. And he's trying to provide this like education to a lot of people so that more people can understand human behavior and how to talk to people calmly and intelligently and understand their needs and understand what's going on this deeper level, which is just, that's fascinating to me too. But I understand very little about that right now. I'm on the process of learning.
It's learning. It's a crash course. Because
Yeah.
in running this place for now 6 years, I think most of like my more, I guess you could say, like detrimental or major mistakes have been solely with mishandling interactions with employees, where outbursts with I can't believe this happened, like how would you do this, or just like misinterpreting what I said, and then ultimately like that spiraling, or like me not catching it before it got a little too crazy, or even just like interpersonal interactions, like, oh, I didn't know you didn't like this guy, I didn't know you were having this problem with him. And then it also gets really interesting because you can't really pick a side as the manager, as the guy in charge, but at the same time, you kind of got to pick a side because you're ultimately gonna have to make a decision that's gonna benefit someone. If two people really want to work on the same, shift, say, we don't even do shifts, but just for example, you're going to have to pick someone that's going to get the more favorable of those two options. Someone's going to win. And it just comes down to a point of, all right, what are the pros and cons of giving into this but not giving into that? And are they going to hold a grudge? Are you going to lose an employee? So, there's situations that arise where you're like, oh, hey, I got to put my foot down here. He's going to be really mad about it. And there's nothing I can do because sadly, as much as you say, want to give him the benefit of the doubt, this is a little extreme example, but like you see it in law, where it's like, this is now a case that's going to be referenced. And I'm more thinking like, if I give a guy like, yeah, it's fine, you didn't tell me you're going to leave halfway through the day, but you gotta take your mom to her appointment, I get it, leave at noon. It's fine. And then 2 weeks later, someone will be like, hey, can I have a noon today? You're like, dude, no, like we didn't talk about it. It's like, oh, well, last week you let so and so leave. And you're like, I did do that. They had a situation. You just want to leave, and now you're kind of in this pickle of, all right, you can say no, but that means next time someone comes to you with a valid reason, you have to keep that same energy because you can't keep flip-flopping. You have to set these precedents, and that's been the hardest thing for me, I think, is, I like when everyone's feeling like they're acknowledged and appreciated, especially at like a smaller company. It makes me happy to know that my guys feel like they're seen, and they're not just assembly line workers. They have names, they have lives, they have families, they have, bills. I try and recognize these things, but at the same time, for a while I was just trying to like help everyone and give them the best situations, and it ultimately got to a point where the place was worse off when I was trying to make everyone happy and accommodated than it is now that people have structure and rules and limitations and schedules and quotas. It's funny because I've really been learning all of this the hard way, where it's like these interactions with people where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna, I watched a documentary once on Zappos, how amazing they are at customer service and how much their employees, they have the highest retention rate of any company. It's like, wow, this is so cool, like look how beneficial they are. And then it's like you try and do that here and it's like, all right, well, factory is a very different setting than your office. And these people are, not everyone, but like, oh, this guy's going to try and take advantage of you. You can't do that. So it's just kind of, I've been having trouble finding that line. And I think very, very recently I've been like, all right, you got to put a line in the sand. And we got to know that this is this and that is that. And you don't get that benefit. And if they ask why, because you don't.
Exactly. And that's honestly so fascinating. I really appreciate you sharing that part because I think as designers, it's really different because it's just us. It's very, very rare that a freelance designer is running a team. And if they are, they probably have 500,000 followers on Instagram and they're super successful. A lot of freelance designers, it's kind of just us. So there's not that deeper level of like management of having to run a team and set those rules and set those boundaries that we understand. That's as interesting to me as you understanding there's a strategy behind a trifold,
Yeah.
So that's really, really cool. And I'm thankful that you shared that because that changed my perspective a lot. That's crazy.
It's something, like I said, it's something that I really have been learning the hard way recently, because you're now getting people who are asking for things that, are objectively like, there's nothing wrong with you wanting that. It makes sense. And you can provide a valid example of a previous time when I did it. But I'm also like, I'm a growing company. Like I said, I've only been here for 6 years. We revamped the entire thing when I started. So it's essentially from the ground up 6 years ago. Which means now we're getting to a point where I'm like, yeah, we could have some fun here when it was small and we had like 5 customers and we were just getting by. And some days we didn't have work to do 8 hours of work. Now it's, I have 8 hours of work every day. Everyone does, including myself. Like, I'm busy the entire day. So, we can't have fun anymore, guys. And it's rough when you have some of the old guard, guys who have been with me for now 4 years, who were here when you could have headphones in on the floor, and you could mess with your phone, and you could come back and talk to me for an hour. And now we have schedules and, like I said, and quotas and due dates, and it's a very different, it's a real job now. And I think you get some kids are like, hey, I heard you basically just like coming in, if we build a couple doors today, like no one really asked questions. And it's like, yeah, that's how it was when it wasn't as real as it is now. I don't know a better way to phrase it. It's just, it's a growing company. And it's nice because now we're developing a new culture shift where and this is culture in the phrasing of like internal employee structure, as opposed to like, you also get a lot of people who it's like culture is like brand or like company vision and company like way of doing things. But I mean, like literal employee culture is just developing this like, hey, you come in, you do 8 hours, you go home. Now, I don't bug you when you leave. That's like a big thing with me is like the second you step foot out of here, you don't hear from me. I'm not going to suddenly call you and be like, hey, tomorrow we really need to step. No, I'll talk to you at 8 a.m. tomorrow when you start. When you're not on the clock, you're not dealing with me. And all I'm at, and the flip side of that is when you're here, you're going to deal with me. And we got to get things done and we got to get X amount of things built today because that needs to leave tomorrow. No excuses. And that transition for myself was hard, and now it's finally catching where, people are getting the game and they're understanding this is a real workplace. There's deadlines. People's like livelihoods are at stake in terms of if we don't sell X amount of doors, like we're a 9-person company, I can't pay y'all. It's a 1-to-1. And I want to make sure we're all going to be taken care of. I do care about you guys, and I care in the sense of I want to make sure I'm never stiffing you on a paycheck. I'm never worried about making a deadline. I'm never worried about your healthcare lapsing. Like, I'll take care of all of these things. We just need to be on the same page of this is a job. It's not supposed to be fun. And, that's, I think, hard.
It's a hard thing. And I think, honestly, that was the downfall of Kick Charge through my eyes. Because when I got there, it was right at that pivot where for so long they weren't like worldwide at the time. They're worldwide now, and initially the 20 years ago, they had the same staff for 20 years. So I come in right as they're starting to upheave their groundwork, upheave the foundation and start to move to this more serious, more mature business model. And you hear from all the old heads, when we were here, we used to be able to go out for lunch for an hour and a half. And when we were here, we used to just chit chat with this, that, the other person. And you're fed all of that. And I think that's honestly what really hurt me in a lot of ways, because now all of a sudden they want to track, your coffee breaks. They want to track your lunch break. They want to know how many times you're going to the bathroom a day. Like, it was just so ridiculous at a certain point. And I'm like, this is never how it was, and that started to really play on me a lot. And to the point where it started to sour me. And then it came to another company bought into the company that brought a whole new set of changes as far as systems, processes, time tracking, quotas, everything. And at that point, my business was starting to stand on its own. And I was just like, this is not for me anymore. It's tough. It is tough, but they have an incredible team. Their team, I think, went from 20 to 60 in the course of a year with all of the changes that they put into place. And after they did their full overhaul, I left that October of 2023 is when I started my business. That January 1st, or the first January of 2024, that month, they broke $1 million. They had their first $1 million month. So that kind of stuff, it's important, but you have to have the right people to be able to do that for sure.
Yeah, and I'm blessed. I'm very lucky. I have a really good manager who, I've talked to and I've been very transparent with, where I've just been like, hey, things have to be different or we're not going to maintain or we're going to have to stagnate, which in my opinion is just as bad as going backwards. Like, I want to just keep going up, up, up. You get that dopamine rush when you see bigger number. So I'm like, I want our sales to keep going up, up, up. I want this to maintain. I want to be able to kind of give back, honestly, to y'all, because I can't provide more raises. I can't give a bigger Christmas bonus if we're simply not selling more doors. And it is literally not deeper than that. More doors equal more dollars. It's just been a process, and we're finally getting there. And we're also, like I mentioned earlier, we're doing a transition to a new facility coming. We're getting one built. We're doing all of that fun stuff. And that means I don't want to go to a new facility where, our company is doing a large investment in the part of the business I run. So at the end of the day, I can't go into a new facility and be like, maybe we take like 4 breaks a day. It's like, no, they just did a, $2.8 million investment in us. So let's nip this all in the butt and kind of start working, because we don't really have a choice, honestly.
Yeah, now you have an accountability.
Yeah, now it's real. Yeah, it's not like a fun, oh, we own the door shop, it's a fun project anymore. It's like, no, we got to go get sales and find new customers and optimize the product, and packaging has to look uniform across the board. I don't want a sticker here and a sticker here on the same doors. They need to be aligned. I always mention to my guys, I'm like, they always ask me like, hey, could we send this out? It has like a minor nick here. And I'm like, easiest way to do it is, if you sold that in a store, would you buy that one or the one behind it? And they're like, I'd probably look at the one behind it. I'm like, then it's not good enough to be on their floor. If that's the one that's, if that's the gross store that's going to keep getting reshuffled in the stock, they're just going to end up seeing our product looking gross after a year of it sticking there. Even though they've ordered 4 times and restocked that pile, they say they keep 5 in it. There's always the same one in the back. Eventually, someone's going to be like, yo, what the hell is this? So it
Wow.
can't
And
help it.
that just goes back to your dad keeping Heeby's clean. Like, it's cool
Yeah.
because your entire story, it seems like that echo of what your dad instilled in you at such a young age has just snowballed in a positive way throughout your entire life. And now to taking over American Door and being able to do what you do now, like, it's just, that to me is so cool to see from an outside perspective looking in, for sure.
Oh, I mean, I can't say anything other than I'm just so lucky to, one, like what my dad does and honestly enjoy this industry. I like working my hands. I like doing the building side of the building supplies, because that's the other hard thing is like I've met a lot of people in the building supplies world who are, and this is gonna sound mean, I guess, but like, who are very clean cut, very college educated, which is wonderful. Like, I think you should be college educated, but also understand if you're gonna come and sell windows, you should probably have installed a window. And you should probably know why this and that, like what hurricane codes they need in Florida versus the coding they need in Philly. You should know the difference and you should know why it matters and you should be aware of it. And sadly, building supplies is a weird industry. It's no one in this industry isn't born into it at this point. Every single
Right.
person I talk to is the son of someone, the daughter of someone, the cousin of someone. They had a friend whose dad brought them in. Like, everyone just is this mismatched, incestuous. Like, we all came from the same 30 people. The amount of times I've met a random guy and they'll be like, oh, Kevin Heebner? I'm like, yeah, Kevin Heebner's my dad. And they're like, oh, Jesse? I'm like, yeah, how do I know you? And he's like, so and so lumber from over the way. He's like, we used to flip tile containers with you. I'm like, oh my god, you did flip tile containers in the '90s. I'm like, I actually knew about that. Weird.
That's
And it'll just be these
crazy.
constant relationships where, like, this has happened multiple times where I've gone to store and they're like, oh, your dad does the surplus stuff. He's really good at it. And I'm like, yeah, he was really good. And they're like, no, 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 Kevin, let me tell you about Kevin. I'm like, it's my dad. I know about Kevin.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's wonderful and it's nice, but it also just always makes me laugh because it's like you really got to be hands on and know what's going on in here. You're a fish out of water.
I feel bad because I don't want to take too much of your time, but I feel like I could talk to you all day.
Oh no, I mean, I love talking shop, so
Yeah,
no
that's so
problem.
cool. I mean, honestly, for me, I think the most interesting was understanding and hearing about you stepping into American Door, the facility, and then being dropped with that bomb of like, lay the whole thing out, we're going to Greece. For me, as an outsider, I feel like that if your dad really is the way that you're describing him, that was strategic in its own way, that he wanted to see you do that. You know, I think that that was kind of a pre-planned, like, you do this.
Kev, my entire relationship with my dad, and this is this is gonna be one of those things where like out of context is gonna sound like, oh, this is terrible, but like it's very much it's how I operate. Like, my dad lives for throwing me in the deep end and just being like, figure it out, swim, and I keep swimming. So he's like, all right, let's go find deeper water.
And to me, I think that that is the most incredible type of parent, because that's how it was for me my whole life. It was just constantly being thrown in the deep end. I'm the oldest child. I have a younger sister. And throughout my entire life, it was always, I had to step up. I always had to take care of the younger sister. I always had to be the responsible one. I was always the first one with the job. I was always the first one into college. I was, you know what I mean? That kind of like older child syndrome. And for me, it was like they would always baby my younger sister, but they didn't care what happened to me. So it was like, just jump into the deep end, just figure it out. You know, you have to be the strong older sibling. And for me, honestly, as a child, I was resentful because I always felt like I was not getting as much attention, this, that, the other thing. But now I'm at a point in my life where I could not be more thankful for that experience, for that independence, because I use it every day running my business. Like, being able to talk to strangers would never have happened unless I had to learn to do that on my own, you know, and being able to stand my own ground and support what I believe in and hold my values dear, even when it's like really difficult. Like, leaving Kick Charge was not an easy thing for me to do. And knowing in my heart I had more left in me and I had more to give and I can help more people if I went out on my own. Like, I don't think that that would have happened if I didn't have the upbringing that I did have. Plus, my dad answering all of the questions was super, super, super helpful. It was, oh my gosh, I used to annoy him so much, but he was such a good sport about it.
Oh my God. I mean, I annoy my dad to this day where I'm just like, why do you do that? Like, what's happening? When are we doing this? And now it's more just like, how do you not know that? We get, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he was showing me how to fix the lawnmower because I smoked the belt unintentionally. I got stuck. I got bogged down in like a little ditch where there was water and I smoked the belt. So he was like, all right, I'll teach you how to change it. So taught me how to take the deck off and everything. And there's this one like hanger piece that can swing one way or the other. And he was like, now before you bolt it to the underneath of the mowing machine, make sure it's in this position. Because if you go through and it's in the other position and you bolt the whole thing through, you can't get it to go back into position where it has to be. And I was like, you speak from experience, don't you? He was like, yeah.
Oh, there's nothing better than someone stopping you like right before you do something. They're like, it's gonna add 3 hours to your time. Just wait. Just take a deep breath.
Yep, exactly. And for that, I think that has improved and benefited me in my business and my mindset and the way that I kind of approach things with this meticulous mind. It's just, that's the coolest thing for me. Everything's a puzzle to me.
I couldn't run this place without the exact same concept, because without asking all these questions and honestly just working with my dad throughout the years and being handy, like I do the machine maintenance here. So all the machinery here, all the machinery here I maintain within reason.
Wow. That's crazy.
But I never worked on machines. I'm just handy. So the entire time it was just like I would call my electricians and I'd be like, hey, what did you do? How'd you do it? And I would just stand there and like literally stare at them and just be like, all right, so like, why are you doing it this way? What's that? What's this? So if you unplug that, it resets it. And they're like, yeah, do this. And now it's like, cool. I know how much, the reason where this is all leading to is I know how much money those electricians cost. They are not cheap. They are very specialized guys and very, very smart individuals. I need to be able to, bring down that bill. My highest expense last year was literally just machine maintenance. From, them replacing this, replacing that, rebuilding this motor. And it's like, all right, I don't know if I could rebuild a motor, but I can understand airlines and pneumatic tools enough to be like, all right, this broke here, this broke there, we need to replace that belt. All right, cool. Those three things are what actually needs to be fixed. That one's the important one. I can do those two, and I can call them and tell them, hey, I think this is what's wrong. And instead of them spending 4 hours here figuring it out, they can come with a new whatever that needs and replace it and be in and out in 45 minutes. Now a 4-hour bill is an hour bill. And, we just reduced our cost essentially 75%.
That's incredible. Wow. I literally could talk to you all day. I don't want to take up too much of your time, though, because I know that you're a busy business owner. And I super, super appreciate you being willing to be on the podcast. I feel like this entire conversation was just so entertaining for me. So I know it's going to be entertaining for my audience as well. I
hope so. I was honestly pretty nervous to come on here. I love talking, but I've never been recorded talking, and you just don't know.
Well, thank you so much, Jesse, for taking the time to be on the show today. And I will see everybody in next week's episode. Bye.